And we're back at it again with another live one for all you Biconics wrestling fanatics out there on the YouTube land. And welcome to another edition of the Friday Night Faction Review for WWE Smackdown for September 8th, 2023. I am technically your host, I guess. It's kind of an odd situation here on the Smackdown show, Mikey. And joining me this week is a returning co-host from last week's SmackDown review, my friend Luis. I'm so happy to have you back, dude.
Yeah, ¿cómo estamos, mi gente? I'm definitely excited for this show. As I said to Mikey, I truly enjoy um, doing the SmackDown and Raw reviews because they are the two most popular shows on television, and I'm very much looking forward to this show. It was very short. It didn't feel rushed, but it definitely went by very quickly.
Absolutely. And this one's going to be a pretty easy review given the
Mhm.
fact that a lot of the major superstars who were missing on Friday Night SmackDown that we normally see were over in India for the special show in India. So which was a nice change of pace because we focused really on three progressing storylines that followed throughout the night, and it was just refreshing. So
Yeah, I agree
with
with
that,
you.
yeah, it was refreshing. I do have some questions which we'll get into in a little bit, but we can just straight in. Now, there's a lot of wrestling. And so we opened SmackDown tonight with a recap of Payback. I'm like, oh my gosh, that literally was just this week. What I thought I felt like it's been so much longer.
Yeah,
We got a recap of what happened at Payback. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I looked at the calendar. I'm like, this was just a couple days ago. What is I don't know. Everything's blurring together, especially when you watch lots of wrestling. Everything tends to blend together. But after the Payback recap, we get our opening match, and it happens to open up with the women's match, which I was pleasantly surprised. And then
absolutely.
more importantly, we have Charlotte Flair and Shotzi teaming up to take on Damage Control, which is being represented tonight by Bailey and Io Sky. This match was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta put this onus on the producers who came up with this show. Having Charlotte open this show is one of the smartest calls you could possibly have because you're having the women come out and you don't know how people are going to react to the Damage Control song. You don't know how people are going to react to the tank the right way. But Charlotte is clearly one of the top two or three names in the division. So you have her come out, you have her do the woo, the turnaround, the pyro, however you have it, and then Shotzi comes out and has that amazing tank. And then you have Damage Control. We obviously know Dakota Kai is not cleared to wrestle yet. These women go out there, and what was so special is this is Friday night in Boston. Boston is a major wrestling market. We got four of the most talented women on the roster. They got to go out there, showcase their ability, and we also got to see Shotzi look like a star. She held up, and this is one of my favorite things. And I know this is going to be weird to say, but I really feel like the head shave made a difference. I love that she's rocking the early 2000s Chester Bennington haircut, my boy. And I just absolutely love how all the women in the ring, and I want to be very clear, as someone who's been watching wrestling for 35 years, I got to be honest with you. Those women in the ring, they were all trying to make Shotzi a star. She was meant to come out of that match as the like this is going to be like we're pushing her in this direction. I loved it. It was a two-segment match, and we also got to see some great spots, and it ended in a schmaz. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we got a clean finish, but the good guys win. So what'd you think?
Honestly, I did it because I've seen a lot of people talk about how they do. Normally, I don't like schmaz finishes, but I think in
Mhm.
the context of what we got, I think it works because I might be a little biased of what we are getting in 2 weeks as we come to find out. But I love the fact that Asuka has been missing for the last 2-3 weeks since her one-on-one match with Charlotte ended in a schmaz because Io got involved, and I love that we kind of forgotten that Asuka's still here, and then she was the cause of the schmaz for this
Mhm.
match with Io and Bailey. So I was like tit for tat. I love it. I love it, and
Absolutely.
I absolutely agree with you. The Shotzi came out of this looking like a star, and the other three women did a really good job of highlighting Shotzi's strengths of as a wrestler. I love this new haircut. The spikes,
Mhm.
the shaved head definitely did help. And of course, been following her since NXT. I'm still glad that she has the tank, but now it adds a different dimension with this new look, and I absolutely love it. And
Yeah,
again, two segment match. I was like, we don't get these with women's matches a lot, and so this was great.
I mean, before anybody jumps in the comments or starts leaving, nasty messages to us, we understand that the reason that they got two segment matches was for Charlotte, but it still did its job. It was meant to make Shotzi look like a star. And I think you brought this up before, so I wanted to talk about it before we move to LA Knight and Austin Theory. But Bailey is taking a lot of losses. You know why, guys? Because she can. Because we've seen The Miz take what? He won one pay per view match in his last 36. It doesn't matter. Seth Rollins went an entire year losing every single pay per view match. Bailey is that upper echelon star. She can lose for the next 6 months. And then guess what, guys? She can main event WrestleMania, and none of yous would disagree with it. You'd all be like, yeah, I see that. I see that. That's the point of Bailey. So, like, let's calm down.
And of the four horsewomen, like Bailey has always said in interviews too, she is down to do whatever it is necessary to do what it takes. She always is up game. She doesn't mind taking losses. Bailey is great, and I feel like people don't talk about her enough when we bring up, like, when we talk about the four horsewomen of NXT between her, Mercedes, Charlotte, and Becky. Bailey always seems to get left out of the conversation because Bailey has been down for this company, willing to do whatever. And the fact that she is now getting to wrestle pretty much almost every single week on SmackDown due to this storyline with Shotzi and due to being the leader of Damage Control, I, for one, don't hate it. And everyone just needs to calm down because, again, if as soon as Bailey ends up on a pay per view match, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, this was great." I was like, "But you
Yep.
guys were complaining about her taking multiple losses within the last couple of weeks, but
Hmm.
now all of a sudden it's wiped away because she's on a pay per view card." I'm like, "Okay, just all right."
If you go back to when all three of what the Divas Revolution, right? If you go back to when that happened, right? We got Sasha, we got Becky, we got Charlotte. What was everybody's big complaint? Why is
That
Bailey being left behind?
exactly.
So like people that all of a sudden are hating on Bailey, it's just a fickle wrestling fan base. That's what it is. Like, I really feel like Brian should have came out with a t-shirt that just said fickle because I would have bought it. I just honestly, when I watch this and I'm thinking to myself, guys, and if you don't know, like we have so much media out there in terms of professional wrestling. Bailey is very much that I need to help make the next crop of stars. AJ Lee helped make her. If you go back to when she won Diva of the Year, like she talked about wanting to work people like Bailey. This is what Bailey's doing. If you go back to when she was injured and she was coming back at SummerSlam, she talks about it. She wanted to work with Dakota. She was upset Dakota got fired. She wanted to work with EO. She was upset EO wasn't being used. That's why these women are in the position they're in because of Bailey, because she's propelling them to the top.
Oh, absolutely. And we mentioned this before. Towards the finishing sequence of this match, Asuka pops up. She takes the title from Dakota, who's holding it out on ringside. Bailey and Io are like, what is happening? And that's enough of a distraction for Charlotte and Shotzi to take advantage. And of course, Shotzi getting the pin in this match was the cherry on top. The winners of this match, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi. And I also appreciated that as soon as the recap video was gone, both Charlotte and Shotzi walked up the ramp. They're like, we're out, so we can give Asuka and Io the face to face that
Hmm.
all the wrestling fans who know of their history from Japan and uh, listen, I have always wanted this match, and then I'm still dream booking in my head with the reports that Kyrie is coming back to
Hmm.
WWE. I need. I am happy with Asuka versus Io. That match is going to be great in 2 weeks. But if we can get a triple threat with those two and Kyrie thrown into it, I can die happy.
Yep, absolutely. Let's golf clap that because that's a great shot. I'm very excited for that. I think they're gonna just tear the house down, and I think people just automatically see it, oh, it's on SmackDown, and they just assume, oh, but it's a television match. Like they're not going to go all out. Guys, there have been tons of television. We had an Iron Man match between Triple H and Chris Benoit. That match was awesome. We had the Intercontinental Championship match between Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. Like I'm giving you different eras, but we always have television matches that rise above. The Miz versus Roman Reigns for the Intercontinental Championship. These matches, they can be very good. If these people want to go out there and they want to showcase the title, these women are going to do that. They just need the time. They need 20 minutes. Do not give them a 7-minute match. I mean, that wouldn't do anything for anybody.
No, and I'm excited that we're getting this championship defended because my biggest complaint for Payback was the fact that leading into Payback, Io didn't have really anything to do, and it upset me a little bit. I'm like, you just had her win this title at SummerSlam. I get you don't want to oversaturate the card, but I wasn't sure what direction we were going in. But now that we have this direction, I am so looking forward to this championship match, and I'm interested to see if this leads into something at Fastlane for Io
Hmm.
to have. But I'm excited for this match, and we'll see more of Asuka later in the show because, again,
Yep.
her full villain monologue comes into play later, and I'm so happy to
Mhm.
finally see this is the Japanese wrestling Asuka that I know now that she's
Absolutely.
embracing the full villain role. It it's great. So, okay, I want your thoughts on this. So, Jimmy Uso, the motivations here is still confusing me. So, I get where he's coming from when you tie in his promo last week and to what it is now. I'm like, sir, Roman Reigns don't like you. Solo Sikoa don't like you. Paul Heyman is on the fence about you, but he's doing anything and everything to get back into the good graces of the bloodline. And that's what he does because him and Paul Heyman backstage have this conversation. I also love the subtle nod that when Paul Heyman and AJ are on the screen together, I was like, if we remember, AJ had real life issues with Paul Heyman, especially when he was in charge of SmackDown, because AJ
Hmm.
wanted to be traded to Raw because he feels that Paul Heyman was responsible for Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows being let go the first time when people were getting released a few years ago. And to see this kind of play in, I was just like, yes, give this to me now. I'm like,
Agreed. Agreed. Well, I'm honestly, I feel like Jay or Jimmy's just playing the role where nobody wants him.
mhm,
Like that's what it is. Like it's almost like that kid who was in a friends group, and then the friends group is kind of like outgrown him, and he goes to jump into another friends group, right? And the other friend group is like, "Yeah, you're cool for now, but you're not really our cup of tea." And then he tries to go back to the first friends group, and he's like, "What do I need to do so I could get like we could still rock with each other?" Like that's what it feels like. It feels like a very schoolyard segment. It definitely doesn't feel like there's anything of substance. I'm not. I got to be honest with you. I'm not really interested in Jimmy. Like every time I see him on my screen, I'm like, man, they're like he doesn't give off the vibe that his brother does. He doesn't even give off the vibe that Solo does. Like in my opinion, we're gonna talk about it later, but like AJ Styles is in the ring, right, working, and the guy he's working, I'm not interested in. I'm wondering like when am I gonna get the next AJ Styles versus Solo match? And Solo's just standing there watching. Like, that's kind of how I felt. I just feel like Jimmy might be the worst version of in the Samoan dynasty, I guess. But maybe that's just me. For the AJ Styles thing, I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up. I had that in my notes here. The fact that AJ and Paul Heyman have real life heat, I think that's really gonna play into it. And I love the fact that like AJ is so angry, and Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, it's almost like they've forgotten why they were released. Like they're not angry. You know what I mean? Like it's great. It's such a great way to like you know just divide the group. Maybe they're just realizing like we need AJ by himself again, and that's what I'm hoping.
right. And honestly, I think AJ being by himself for a little bit, I think will do better for him because the last couple of, I guess, if you want to call those loose thread stories that we've gotten with AJ involved, it's always him being paired with somebody else. Like him and Omos were a tag team. And then AJ's kind of been floundering by himself a
Yep.
little bit, like with nothing to do. And now we're finally getting something. And this angry AJ, I was like,
Hmm.
see, this is the AJ that made me like him in 2016 SmackDown era, where he was
The
bold.
face that runs the place.
Yes, the face that runs the place needs to make a comeback, and I'm hoping that this is the start of him getting back to that version of AJ Styles, because the face that runs the place is the best iteration that we have gotten of AJ Styles in WWE, and I need him back because then I was like, I I just want him to I just want him back.
Well, I think it's a good way to segue into our next match of the evening because I want to bring them two together when we jump to the main event.
Oh, absolutely. So Jimmy attacks AJ to protect Paul Heyman, which is I was like,
Mhm.
okay, cool. Just a subtle nod. I'm like, somebody needs to get Paul Heyman a new cell phone case, sir. You've had that same red case for the last 5 years. I was like, you don't believe in upgrading your phone? Like,
I
what?
gotta be honest with you. I rock with the life proof case. This thing is amazing. I take this in a pool. Listen, they're not a sponsor, but I'll take it. If you guys want to sponsor us, let's go.
Listen, I'm all ears. Like, I'm willing to. Exactly. So
Yep.
Kayla interviews Damage Control, and this is where Io states it's like, I'm not scared of Asuka, which confirms this match we get in 2 weeks. Okay, so LA Knight, before his match, cuts his promo. We're going to have a lot to talk about because the reaction to this segment, coupled in with the match, has been very interesting in the circles of professional wrestling. I am of the mindset that I enjoyed this promo, I enjoyed this match, and it's setting up LA Knight for great things. But I am slowly starting to see, because we talked a little bit before off camera, that the circle of LA Knight fans, I can start to feel it's shrinking because people can't are fickle and they can't stick to their guns whether they want to like LA Knight or dislike him.
Yeah, so before we jump on here, I just want to ask because I'm pretty sure I know what your profession is off camera here. What did you think of LA Knight correcting grammar?
Listen, I might be a middle school mathematics teacher, but the teacher in me, I howled when he was correcting grammar. I was like, yes. I was like, there's always a few people. I love when people correct grammar because it just comes out as, especially, listen, I work with a lot of language arts English teachers. So it just comes out a second nature. You're like, oh, that. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to correct you. I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, it comes with
Yeah.
territory. And I love the implication that I'm like, LA Knight is quote unquote schooling by correcting the grammar. I
Yeah, I loved
I
it.
loved it.
I remember so my brother's really he's really smart. He's a reader and things like that. And I remember in '96 when Kevin Nash cut that promo, him like looking at me like, "What? That's not true. That's not an adjective." Like I remember when he said that, and I was thinking like, "Mira, papi, I don't know. I mean, I don't know." Like, but like, because that's not really my cup of tea. Spanish is my first language. But watching it now, I thought it was a great callback, especially since Kevin Nash has been so harsh with his criticism on LA Knight. I thought to myself, what a great way to go out there and just like tie everything together. I thought the reason that LA Knight got to his popularity was because of his Grayson Waller feud in NXT. So if this is what we're doing, but doing it on the main roster and it helps both of these superstars, I'm all for it. Now, what I'm not all for is the fact that it feels like Austin Theory plays like the background character to all of this, and I feel like there's just been so much work done for Austin Theory for us to just look at him as like, all right, we're just gonna go out here and you're just gonna be the quick heater for Waller, and then you're just gonna take the pin. If we're leading to Grayson Waller versus LA Knight, give it to me. I mean, absolutely give me that because I think the both of them promo battle back and forth, Grayson Waller effect. Who knows? You know, give me a nightclub in the ring or whatever you want to call that, by the way. I want that. I'm going to copyright that, by the way. Anyway, so give me that. Whatever you need to give me for television segments, I think it'll be great for wrestling in general. And I don't know. I guess it just felt like to me like Austin Theory was just used as a prop today. But as for the LA Knight fandom, I think this just comes with the territory. The most, once creative gives you what you want, that's when you gotta cry about it.
And okay, so let's take a minute because listen, This is something that has always been a thing in the wrestling community, regardless of what
Yep.
era of wrestling people end up watching. It has been around for the longest time. It's just, in my opinion, it has gotten worse because now, when you add in the digital age of things where everyone and their mother has an opinion and has social media to post said opinions all over the place, we talked a little bit about this off camera, but I need LA Knight fans. You either are gonna rock with him regardless of what happens, or you need to get off the boat before things start to sink. If it sinks, which I don't think it's going to sink, but I hate this. I'm with him for a day, and then tomorrow I don't like him, and then just keep going this back and forth. You listen. Opinions of wrestlers are allowed to change. You are allowed to change who your favorites are. But I hate when the fandom for certain wrestlers cry out because they're not being utilized properly. I have been a part of it. Like in the other
Oh
company,
yeah.
like in WWE, like I think Bobby Lashley is not being used. Well, now he is, and I'm
Hell
hopeful,
yeah.
and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But like leading into WrestleMania, it was like Bobby Lashley wasn't on the card. He's not being used properly. LA Knight is kind of just sitting around for a little bit, and now we're starting to get a push. There are so many
Mhm.
wrestlers in the company that people cry out, be like, they're not being utilized. And then with the case of LA Knight, everyone was happy because he got this match against The Miz at Payback.
Mhm.
And, he got the John Cena rub, if you want to call it, which I'm like, he didn't really need it, but I mean, it doesn't hurt either. Um,
Mhm.
and now that he's being pushed, his momentum keeps being pushed forward. Now people are like, "Oh, maybe I didn't like him." I'm like, "But this is what you wanted. You've been crying
Yep.
about it since he got to the main roster, and now that he's
Absolutely.
getting, what the creative push behind him, now all of a sudden everybody wants to see. We can't. I'm not. Not today."
So my biggest question, like I've made this comparison a lot, and I feel like I get a lot of flack whenever I make the comparison. But I feel like the stories are parallel. So just rock with me here for a minute. When Stone Cold Steve Austin came in and he was ringmaster, right? When he switched to Stone Cold, which 2 days ago was the anniversary of when he like became Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? When he became Stone Cold Steve Austin, he he was the guy that the machine didn't want to push. He kind of made them do it, and then he has been the only guy who's been saved from criticism. If you look at it, he was such a transcendent star that when Vince McMahon decided, okay, this is our guy, this is the face of our company for years to come. When he decided to do that, fans just they were like happy. But ever since Stone Cold, whenever the machine, as they say, has backed a superstar, it has made wrestling fans stop liking them. And the best example of this is during Yeselmania. If you remember when he beats Batista and Orton in the main event, the very next night, if you go back, you can YouTube his first promo as WWE champion. When he cuts the promo, he laughs in his weird Brian laugh and he says, "Now I know what it feels like to be John Cena." The people at Raw after Mania were already booing him, like, "Oh, you got the title now. We hate you." This is what happens. I don't understand why the fan bases do this, but I got to be honest with you. What I've realized over the past 6 months, I really feel like LA Knight fans are very much like AEW fans. You're either a diehard or you don't like the guy. It feels genuinely like that. There are people that do not like we have a lot of mutuals that we follow on TikTok together. You can see it whenever you're on their page or whenever you see a video. It says friends with this person and stuff. And we have a lot of mutuals that do not like LA Knight. They're just like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And it's just like, well, you didn't grow up in the Attitude Era. Like he is that throwback. He is that guy.
And see, like for me personally, because I, as a wrestling historian, I guess is the best way to put it, I didn't grow up in the Attitude Era. My prime growing up with wrestling was probably closer towards, I didn't really start watching wrestling hardcore until maybe like 2010 in that era.
Mhm.
And, I was in high school, about to graduate to go to college. And then from there, it's been running. But I went back and I studied the Attitude Era, and I like LA Knight because it's something different. It's a throwback to an
Yes.
era. And again, bringing up the wrestling fandom. Everybody complains that WWE currently is too PG and they miss the Attitude Era. And then you get somebody who's a throwback to the Attitude
Mhm.
Era promo wise in LA Knight, and then everyone just take a massive masa on it. I was like, really? Is that what we're doing now? I was like, you complained about it, we got it, but now because it's being pushed by the big machine of creative in WWE, now you want to be a hater. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't know. I'm sure well. I think we'll talk about LA Knight towards the end of the show too, because I really want to bring two things together that I think is going to be super interesting. I'm trying to formulate how I want to actually tie them in together, but I think it'll be a good conversation for the end of the show.
No, definitely. And we can definitely talk because LA Knight, this won't be the last time we see him. So this was the promo
Mhm.
segment. The match itself was fine. Again, I still hate LA Knight's finisher. I'm like, sir, we need to figure out something new because Blood Force Trauma, it's an okay finisher, but it's not necessarily my favorite.
It's missing Ricochet.
Yeah,
When Ricochet takes it and he takes it the right way, then people will be like, "Oh, we get it.
exactly.
We get it." Yeah. Yeah.
And but I am happy. I was like, I agree with you. I feel like Austin Theory was kind of out of place in this. If you just wanted LA Knight and Grayson to go back and forth, and then Austin comes out for the match, I think that would have been fine. Because afterwards, Grayson tries to get a cheap shot, but LA Knight's like, nah, we ain't having that.
Yeah.
Listen,
I like it.
I enjoyed their feud in NXT, and if you want to give me Grayson versus LA Knight as the feud, what I'm also really hoping is that because Grayson Waller has his show, if WWE can find a way to get away with it, have LA Knight bring back his Impact interview show that he had when he was Eli Drake over there.
Yeah.
And I said this a couple months ago. I'm like, wouldn't it be something if this feud ends up correlating around who has the better talk show between Grayson and LA Knight? And I'm here for the silliness, but Grayson, I also think not a lot of people, his in ring ability is very phenomenal. Like, he has grown a lot.
Yeah.
Though I still agree that his finisher has way too many moving parts to it, but it's a lot of fun to watch still. The roll in, I'm
Yeah.
just like, mm-mm.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll change that. That usually like cuz he's not going to be able to do that consistently over the next 10 years.
Right. I mean, so the match was fine, but Grayson versus LA Knight, please give it to me. And LA, we'll be talking about you in a little bit, anyways. So
Yep.
LA Knight wins as he should. It seems that Grayson versus LA is going to be our feud continuing forward. I'm kind of bummed that,
Mhm.
Miz and him are done for now. I was like, oh, I kind of wanted to see it go off a little more, but it seems Miz and Cena are going to be tangling it up, I guess.
Mhm.
Which was
Got to protect John Cena, man.
that.
Got to protect him for when he goes back to Hollywood for the Peacemaker, and the Miz will do that.
Oh, for sure. So AJ gives a little, at this point, he gets attacked by Jimmy, and then we get an interview saying, no, I can still go. And then that's pretty much the brunt of it. So, okay, we want to talk about a throwback to Attitude Era. So the Judgment Day comes out. Oh, yeah, I forgot. They can go on both shows because technically they're undisputed tag team champions, so they can
Yeah.
go both Raw and SmackDown. And I was like, okay, like I know it's gonna be them versus the Brawling Brutes, but when you talk about a throwback, like we have this long ass promo segment between the Judgment Day
Holy
and the
shit.
Brawling Brutes. I was just like, all right, who wrote the show? Because this is some 2000 Attitude Era like type of
Oh
programming,
yeah.
and I was here for it.
That was very much NWO leading the middle of Nitro to me. That was we're gonna enjoy the heat we get out here. We're gonna give you the match of the Brawling Brutes, and then obviously we're just gonna give the Brawling Brutes like the very beginning, like they're gonna open the match with uh offense, but it's all about what happens after the match. And that's kind of how I felt. Like the match itself was so quick. I was like, all right, well, fine, I guess. Like, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Brawling Brutes to begin with. I've never really been a big Pete Dunne guy, Butch or whatever you say. I know a lot of people like him. I know he's the IWC's favorite. I personally, I'm not a fan. I don't think we all need to like the same thing. Wrestling's a circus. We all go for different reasons. And I I definitely enjoy Judgment Day. They are my absolute favorite thing in professional wrestling right now. I mean, most of my TikTok content is Judgment Day related. I love them, all of it. But I think when you love something, you have to critique it as well. What I would critique about this is they need to figure out a way to cut promos without Rhea Ripley because the crowd, no one, and I mean, I obviously we know this from Finn because he's not good on the mic, but Damien and Dom are, but they need to figure out a way to command the crowd. They let the crowd just get way too carried away.
Yeah, and that was the one thing too. I get a kick out of every time Dom opened his mouth. I was like, boo. I
Yeah.
love that. But you're absolutely right. As much as I love Finn and his in-ring ability, he's not the strongest on the mic. And in WWE, even in NXT, it's still not his strong suit. Damien has the potential to command the room. He just needs a little more time on the mic and to actually let him speak. And
Mhm.
I agree. Because Rhea Ripley is able to cut promos on the behalf of Judgment Day, and it just works because Rhea Ripley is comfortable on the mic. Regardless of whether she's heel or face, the crowd loves Rhea Ripley. The internet wrestling community, for the majority, loves Rhea. And she can do this really well. I just but the cracks kind of do show when she's not there because then the boys, I don't want to say flounder, but Damien could potentially be that stand in for cutting promos for the guys because Finn can't do it. Dom won't be able to do it because he'll constantly be getting booed, as we saw. And I think that's why, as much as I dug this promo, it went on for a little too long. And that's because every time Dom tried to speak, the crowd was not having it.
Yeah, and I think that was a part of like the whole shtick. But getting back to Rhea real quick, when we can move on to like what happens after the match. Rhea's character, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I always felt like Shawn Michaels' character in the 80s and 90s, like he turned into a Chippendales dancer. That's what he kind of was. So I mean, that was his whole like shtick. Like I'm gonna be a Chippendales dancer. I'm the sexy boy, or however it works. So I kind of feel like Rhea Ripley's a dominatrix, and that's why the crowd listens
Listen,
because mommy is in control. If you don't shut up, I'm gonna put the ball gag in your mouth and whip
no,
you. You know what I mean? That's
that's
why it
exactly what this is.
works.
Listen, she wears black leather and like lace and every
Mhm.
the and come on, the way she pins her opponents too. I'm like, come on. Like,
I mean, she dominates. That's what she does. She is the dominator. I don't think they want to call her that because that was Farouk's name, and then it was Bobby Lashley's name, and I think they're just kind of like, okay, well, let's just leave that over here. But she is the dominator, and that's what it is. But I'm not worried about these promo segments in the future because obviously next what happens is
well, so as they are cutting this promo, the Brawling Brutes come out. They kind of fire back. A brawl breaks out, which is what I love to see. And then we just jump straight into the match. I was like, yes, segment it with the promo, get into this match. Match was a lot of fun. I had to rewatch because I was like, wait a minute, did they say it was for the titles? And then I was like, well, I'll be darned, it was, but they didn't illustrate that. After this match, though, okay, so Judgment Day obviously retains. The numbers advantage works. Sheamus is out doing something, I guess. But then the best part of this whole entire thing, we get Bobby Lashley's music hitting. And he is
my
my
man.
man, Bobby Lashley, outfits on point, looking clean, and also being accompanied by the Street Profits, who are also looking clean. Listen, Judgment Day versus Street Profits and Bobby Lashley in faction on faction warfare. Doesn't matter in what capacity. This is what I love to see, and this has become a staple when it comes to Hunter being behind creative. Is that he loves faction on
Hmm.
faction warfare. We saw it in NXT, and we saw it a lot during the Attitude Era. Yes, give me more faction versus faction stuff. This is a feud I want to see between the Judgment Day boys and Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. Give it to me, please.
I can tell what this is headed towards. This is the first time where I've seen a segment happen and immediately I got it. And I just want to give you my point of view. So when Bobby Lashley comes out, which just a quick side note if you'll allow me a story. When I was a little boy, my first wrestling match I ever watched was Sting versus Ric Flair. Sting has always been my guy. My son's first wrestling match he ever watched on TV, I put on No Way Out, Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar, and he was obsessed with Brock. Brock was his guy. That's the reason that my son watches wrestling. My daughter's first wrestling match at like a couple months old was Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre. And my son has wrestling action figures. My daughter, who is only 17 months old, loves Bobby Lashley. So Bobby's always going to be that guy for me because my kids like this is her dude. He's on TV, she's like, "Uh?" It's like watching Coco. Like she's watching. But getting back to this, what I really loved is that this puts that faction, the Street Profits and Bobby, they're baby faces. What has been the issue? Why can't Bianca join this group? Because of her outside of wrestling thing. She doesn't want to be a bad guy. So now, if it's Judgment Day and we need to know who's going to help when Rhea Ripley is that numbers game person, well, guess what? Now we have Bianca with the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley. And I'm looking at a mixed mixed tag match, mixed 8-person tag, war games. I want this. I think this is one of the. I can see Bianca giving the KOD to Dom. And I can see it only happening after Rhea Ripley hits Montez Ford with her pump handle slam. Like, just so many things I can see already.
Honestly, I really hope, because while we haven't got confirmed that War Games is not returning to, Survivor Series, it's still in contention. Listen,
Mm,
if you have Bobby, Street Profits, and Bianca taking on Judgment Day in a War Games match, that is money to me. That is money.
money. Money.
Listen, Street Profits in a War Games match is awesome. Bianca is no stranger to War Games. Bobby Lashley is perfect for this, and then all the Judgment Day, again, in some iteration, have had experience with this as well. I want this so bad. This is great, and this is the setup that I want to see.
Hmm.
I'm
Yep.
super excited. So, again, this was great. This was like, if you count promo, match, and everything that happened, this was like a good 20 minutes of the show. This was like,
Yeah, I mean, it needed it because doesn't it lead right into the main event then?
yeah, because it has two quick backstage segments where AJ is yelling at the OC for being silly.
Yep.
I love that Mia immediately turns on the Good Brothers. Is like, this is not what we talked about. I also want Mia to be used so much more on SmackDown right now, because
Then we should talk about the fact that she actually opened the show in a dark match. She tagged with Zelina Vega against Alba Fire and man,
Isla
I forgot the
Dawn,
other one's name. I'm sorry. Isla Dawn, yeah. So they got the crowd going before the show.
which led into Charlotte and Shot. Listen, two women's matches back to back. I was just like, yes, this is how we utilize. I mean, dark. I also hate when people are like, dark matches don't count. I'm like, I don't care. As dark matches, they're still in front of people, and this is a great way to prove to creative. Be like, y'all need to put me on television. Just saying.
Listen, I went to back holiday shows at Hershey, right? And both years the exact same match opened the holiday show, and it was Malachi Black versus Buddy Matthews. So like the WWE knew what they were doing. They were like, "Oh, last time they popped for this match." And we always got the Street Profits because like Hershey loves the Street Profits. So, yeah. It was good. I really enjoyed the segment with the OC just because I felt like it's AJ trying to remind them like, guys, you got fired because of this guy, because of this group. You know what I mean? And they just don't get it. They're just happy to be there. You know.
You are absolutely right. And what I'm hoping is that because now AJ seems to be showing shades of the face that runs the place, I'm hoping that the rest of, you know, the OC and Mia kind of start. Well, Mia, I feel like, is a lot closer to matching AJ's energy than the Good Brothers are. But if the Good Brothers could get on the same page, again, you have another great faction that could potentially do massive amounts of things on SmackDown, and that it, it excites
Absolutely.
me. Asuka then gives us a quick promo, both in Japanese and in English, but full blown. Kana has finally arrived in WWE, like I've always wanted. I was just like, we got.
She's got the haircut and everything. Yeah.
I was like, yes, beautiful. Asuka versus Io in 2 weeks for the women's championship. I'm so excited. Then we get literally, then it just leads into the main event. So the match itself was
100%.
fine. Like it served its purpose.
Mhm.
I'm happy that AJ won. So, we're continuing to build him up. So eventually, if we want to do AJ and Roman at some point down the line, I'm cool with that. But then the end of this match has me intrigued because the Judgment Day blindside AJ and they throw him back into the ring, leaving him at Solo's feet as they leave. And then Samoan Spike, Finn and Damien look at Solo. The show goes off the air that way. I'm just like, what is happening? I was like, oh,
I think that's listen, I'm a WCW kid. WCW did this all the time. Always turn off the show and leave you asking questions. And that's exactly what this did. It left us asking questions. We don't know what's happening next. Why is the bloodline and the Judgment Day? Why are they trying to help each other out? What's the purpose of this? What are we leading towards? Because the bloodline has been in everybody's mind right now. They're not on television and everybody is pointing out that they're falling, that they're just crumbling. And it's like, all right, well, now, like, you think they're crumbling, but yet you want to help them. I think that was super interesting. I love the fact that AJ Styles wins. Uh, if we could touch on something that obviously we're heading towards the end here, where I want to touch on something I said on TikTok earlier today. This thing with AJ Styles main eventing back to back SmackDowns, I think is going to. I don't want it to. I'm just letting people know what's going to happen. I'm predicting the future, so just let me boot my Madam Cleo on for a second. Listen, uh, this is going to hurt LA Knight's run 100% because Brian Danielson, CM Punk, AJ Styles, Seth Rollins have the same fan base. The only people they argue with over who's better are their own fan bases. Brian people will argue with Seth fans. CM Punk people will argue with AJ fans. But for the rest of us that are just watching wrestling in its entirety, we know what's going to happen. LA Knight's going to continue to rise up the card, and AJ's not going to beat Roman. AJ's going to be fed to Roman. Roman's probably going to beat him clean because that's been the rumor that Roman's going to come back, be alone, and he's just going to be beating people clean. So, and that's a good way to make him a babyface. And I think that's what's going to happen. And fans are just going to be like, they're just pushing LA Knight. Like, F this guy. LA Knight's going to be on my screen. And then you have like one of the best wrestlers ever. Why don't we get more AJ Styles? That I'm afraid that this is what's going to happen. I'm hoping it doesn't, but this is what I see happening.
and and I tend to agree with you. And listen, I have made it clear that I'm a big LA Knight fan, but I'm a bigger AJ
Mhm.
Styles fan. And between the two of them, LA Knight's gonna be fine, you guys. Like he's still newer
Mhm.
in terms of having a career in WWE. AJ has stated he probably has like 4 or 5 more years before is gonna hang it up. So I would, if right now, I'd rather see AJ have one more title run before he goes off into the sunset than I do LA Knight Hole having a title run. And yes, I know that LA Knight is 40. And once you get into your 40s as a wrestler, you start to, it's like the bubonic plague, the Black Death, if you will call it, of wrestlers, where people are like, I don't know, man. He's kind of old out here. Listen, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it as you get older. Minus, bashing his face into the table. Sting to me is still a perfect modern example of how you still have a good wrestling career at a very frail age, of not frail age, but at an older age that still keeps you safe. Because Sting's not out. Again, we're talking about WWE, but I have to pull parallels from other companies because we watch everything. But you have Sting. In my opinion, you have somebody
Uh-huh.
like Jeff Hardy who is out here still trying to do crazy stuff. I'm like, Jeff, please, no. Like it was already bad, and Darby is following in those Jeff Hardy footsteps. I'm like, sir, we need you to slow down. But Sting is a perfect
Mhm.
example of how you could still be a meteoric star once you get older. And Sting is killing it, and he's not even in a title picture. I
He
think
doesn't need
the
to be.
notion that in order for somebody to be made in these companies, they have to have a title or have the big title, I think is kind of detrimental to the sport itself. There have been some amazing careers where some wrestlers haven't even gotten close to being that top star or having the top title, but we always look
Absolutely.
back at their careers and like they may not have won a lot of titles, but my god, the feuds that they had were awesome. And the stories that they told
Mhm.
were astounding. And sometimes I prefer that than title reigns and just putting a title on somebody for
Absolutely.
just to put a title on them.
I would like Sting to have 2 more titles because then he would break the all-time record because he has 15 world title reigns, but that's just me. Yeah, I agree with you. I will say there is going to be a move that LA Knight is going to stop doing. This is just my prediction. He will stop jumping to the top rope the way he does. That will leave his repertoire because it doesn't look good when he does it. It looks botchy. And I think people are just going to be like, it just doesn't look right, man. Like just stop doing it. You don't need to do that. It has nothing to do with your actual wrestling ability. It's not whether you consider it a high spot or not. It's just like a meh type of move. You know what I mean?
No, exactly.
So,
Well, I mean, since we're talking about LA Knight too, I purposely waited to save this for the end because, again, wrestling fans be fickle as all hell. But the
mhm.
one thing I intentionally left out because I wanted to wait and to hear. So, this brief spot that we got of Paul Heyman and LA Knight talking in backstage, I'm just like, loved it. I was just like, okay, now he's slowly LA Knight. If he continues to pick up more wins and continues to rise, then I can see him. All right, he's get. Paul Heyman was weird in this whole thing. I'm like, sir. I was like, I was like, what I'm hoping we're getting. I was like, Paul Heyman, you're kind of acting like you're the champ around here. I was like, did you forget your client is the champion and not you? I really want Paul Heyman to have a power trip. That's what I want to see. I was like, I want him to have a power trip. And I was just like, what is happening?
So I'm actually curious because there's been so many rumors over the past year that WWE's end game for Roman Reigns is to make him a babyface. They want him to close out the championship run as a babyface. That's how they want him to finish up and lose to possibly a heel. And I thought to myself, what if Heyman does the Brock Lesnar thing? What if he does the Roman Reigns thing? What if he betrays Roman? And now we have a new like faction with a new Heyman guy. What if LA Knight is the next Heyman guy? Because the interaction didn't really feel like what I thought it should feel like. It felt very, I don't know, awkward. And then LA Knight's a talker. Like he's not just gonna let someone dress him down like that, but his answer was, yeah.
That
That
was
was it.
that was
It
so
was like,
menacing.
this
It was a
felt strange.
I was like,
Yeah.
what is happening, you guys? Again, like most wrestling fans, we got to be patient. We have to see what happens with this. But
Yeah.
this interaction didn't end up going the way I thought. So I thought I foresaw this going a little bit different, like teasing maybe down the line, Roman will and LA will clash at some point. But it instead of that, it seemed like Paul Heyman is now going to be keeping his eye on LA Knight, which I mean, I'm all for because Paul Heyman knows the business. And I think it
Mhm.
would be fun, but I just found it weird and a little bit awkward. I'm just thinking, I was like, okay, so AJ is getting back to the face that runs the place. But then Paul is scouting LA Knight. And don't get me wrong, as much as an LA Knight fan that I am, right now he's not on the threat radar to come anywhere near to possibly taking the title off Roman. So I found it interesting that Paul is going to be keeping an eye on him and felt disrespected the fact
Yeah.
that LA Knight didn't knock on the door. I'm like, sir, we need to take several seats.
They need to take this slow because if Roman Reigns comes back and all of a sudden you hear LA Knight's music hits, they're not it's going to ruin
No,
everything. Like
Mhm.
I just don't do it, guys.
Please
Don't
don't.
do it.
Honestly, I'd rather have when Roman returns, if anything, I would rather have AJ get first crack than before LA Knight because I feel like
No
exactly. I think
question.
AJ deserves a crack at Roman because technically it's been quite some time since AJ and Roman fought. You know, like if you
Yeah.
take the title out of the picture, like the last time AJ and Roman really fought was I want to say either before, a little bit before, or a little bit after when Roman Reigns came back from his leukemia treatment and then being declared in remission for that. Which, by the way, I'm still upset at people for that promo. I was just like, how can you be mad at Roman Reigns for that promo? I still don't understand that. It's so weird.
I blocked that part out of my brain. Like the guy was back, I was happy. I remember being upset the fact that he was probably gone because he was slowly but surely becoming like my new Sting, like the guy where I felt like I was like on an island by myself. I was his only fan and everybody
Mhm.
hated him. And I was like, this sucks. Like whatever. Um I think it should be known. I think we should talk about that. The reason that Paul Heyman's been here so often is because he needs to know who's getting traded to SmackDown. It is bothering him.
So we're at the end of the episode, but we could still have a little bit of time because I have seen so many theories. I have my own personal beliefs of what who's getting traded and whatnot. So we can talk about that. So again, Paul Heyman's getting
Yeah.
paranoid because he wants to know who from Raw is coming over to SmackDown since Jay got traded. So there are a couple of names that I have seen thrown around. I'm going to stick to my guns based on anything and everything. And again, things change, but I'm still of the firm belief that I think Cody is the one being traded to SmackDown.
100%. I don't even think we need to talk
Okay,
about anybody else. That's exactly
okay,
how I
so
feel
let's
too.
do that.
It's Cody. It's no question. Cody said, think about what Cody
Exactly.
said. Just he said I had to pull every string I could to get this to happen. I had to call I had to call in every favor. Cody traded himself for main event Jay. That was the trade. I feel like it's already been worked out. I feel like Adam Pierce is being told, like, hey, you need to hold on to this information till we're ready to divulge. And we're not gonna find out who got traded until Roman's in the ring. That's what I
Exactly.
feel.
And I mean, honestly, it has to be Cody because this is the best way possible that you can get Cody to continue his feud with Roman without because Cody does not, in my opinion, does not need to win the Rumble. I know people want him to win the Rumble, but if he's already on SmackDown, I don't think he needs to win the Rumble in all honesty. And Cody
No,
being
no,
on
no, no, no.
SmackDown, I think would be great because then, for me personally, we can get Cody versus AJ, Cody versus, LA Knight, Cody versus anybody on the men's
Mhm.
roster is what I'm here for. Bobby Lashley versus Cody would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, no question, because the way I'm kind of like booking WrestleMania right now in my mind, like I tend to do this time of year as I'm already
Hmm.
starting to book. The way I have it is I have it Damian Priest cashes in at the Royal Rumble and beats Seth Rollins at the
Right.
Royal Rumble, and Finn Balor wins
Hmm.
the Royal Rumble. That's what I have happening in my mind. I feel like the Judgment Day kicks out Damian Priest. Damian Priest goes into WrestleMania, the World Heavyweight Champion, and he drops the title to Finn Balor at WrestleMania. They give Finn Balor his WrestleMania moment. I think that's kind of what I have playing on in my head. I don't know if it'll happen. It makes a lot
For
of
real.
sense to me. Would I rather Kevin Owens win the Royal Rumble? 1,000%. 1,000%. But I really feel like Gunther's not going to win the Rumble because there's been a lot of talk of Brock Lesnar coming back and doing the job to him at WrestleMania to pass the torch. There's no need for him to win the Rumble then if that's what happens. Because then why would Gunther need to have his match with Seth Rollins if he's supposed to wrestle Brock? Let's focus on Brock versus
Right.
Gunther.
And okay,
So,
so for me, since we're talking about WrestleMania, on the women's side, the biggest report that I see and the one that I actually would be cool with, um supposedly I've been hearing a lot of talk that Rhea's holding on to this title until WrestleMania and it's going to be her and the biggest opponent that I've seen people talk about and even reports say that this might be the match is Rhea versus Becky for that title at WrestleMania, and I have no complaints.
No complaints. No complaints. I don't need the the Walmart version of Alexa Bliss wrestling Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. There's no need for Liv Morgan to be in that match. No need. I've seen people try to push that narrative. We've already seen it. There's nothing compelling about that story. It's like the best way I'll explain it to you guys is Shawn Michaels said he didn't want to come out of retirement to wrestle Daniel Bryan because he didn't like the teacher versus student storyline. He felt like it had been played out. We don't need to see Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley. Like, give us that at Elimination Chamber if you need it. You know what I mean? Like, don't give us that at WrestleMania. That doesn't scream WrestleMania to me. These Liv Morgan fans that are coming out of nowhere, like, guys, we already had a better version of this. Her name was Alexa Bliss. Like, we get it. You like Liv Morgan, but she's fine. She's like Natalia. She's not good. She's not bad. She's fine. You
Yeah,
know, like
I'm a big
that.
I love Liv to
That's
death, and you know, even I had to critique her title reign, but I also had to. So yeah, I feel like her in ring has gotten better. I want her to get more better, but her title reign, I don't blame
mm-hmm.
her. I blame booking because I'm like booking did not. Booking was partially to blame here because they didn't book her
Yeah.
well. And I mean, and
No, they did
I love
not.
Liv, but yeah, I think have her get better and then have her come back into the title picture down the road, but it doesn't need to be immediately. And of course, you
Mm-mm.
know, if we're still booking WrestleMania, I'm still holding off fast that if this is true, WrestleMania, we have, if Dakota is good to go, which I'm pretty sure she will be by then, hopefully, the implosion of Damage Control with Bailey, Io, and Dakota in a triple threat at WrestleMania. And if I'm being completely honest, I know people like to hate because Dakota, she gets is the outlier according to some people in terms of like why is she here? But listen, as somebody who has seen Dakota on the Independents and in NXT before, you know, even getting injured, she is great. And selfishly, I if you could manage it, I that would be a cool match. But honestly, if you selfishly, I would love to see Asuka, Io, and Kyrie be at WrestleMania in a triple threat. Like, give me listen, free television's great and all, but give me that match on one of the grandest stage that WWE has. Listen,
Agreed. I love that booking because that then we can still have Charlotte versus Bianca. Charlotte versus
oh,
Bianca
for
sells
sure.
itself. It does
Nope.
not need a title. Like that is generational. Like that is like okay, the best of this generation versus the best of this generation. You know what I mean? Like it just sells itself. Like who's the best? It's the way Tony Khan tried to book Brian Danielson versus Okada. It was like we're trying to find out who the best wrestler in the world is. Everybody says it's Brian. Everybody says it's Okada. Well, let's go out there and find out. This is going to main event the show. So that's kind of what I feel like. The problem with Bianca versus Charlotte, that screams main event to me. Like it doesn't scream middle of the card because the last thing I would ever do if I were WWE again is piss off Charlotte Flair WrestleMania Day by telling her she's not main eventing because look at what just happened. She outshined the Bloodline storyline in the main event.
I
I don't even remember that match, the tag match. I remember in detail Charlotte
listen,
versus Rhea.
like I was there live, and me and the two people that went with me talking afterwards, we agreed. I was just like, I love Sammy and KO to death. I love the Usos. I thought that was a fun match. I feel like we didn't need the overbooking of everyone and their mother getting involved, and I feel like we could have cut time off that and still would have been fine. I still hold to the statement that Rhea versus Charlotte should have main evented night one because that would have been a phenomenal way to end night one of WrestleMania.
100%. And they messed up. They messed up. And I brought this up and I don't know if you were if we were like talking to each other back then. But I was angry WrestleMania day. That day I was mad. That Saturday I remember being like, this is bullshit. If you go back and watch when Rhea Ripley wins the Royal Rumble, Michael Cole says Rhea Ripley just booked herself the main event of
It didn't
WrestleMania.
happen.
And then it didn't happen. And I don't care. I've argued this with like on my podcast. I have a co-host who really argued against it. He was like, "No, I think it was story over match," and I was like, "What the fuck? This is a 3-year storyline. She beat Rhea Ripley for the NXT championship. They had another pay-per-view match. She beat
She
Rhea
made
Ripley
Rhea look
again.
like a clown when
This
she took the title off her, which pissed off a lot of NXT Rhea Ripley fans, myself included. I
yes.
was like, wow, they made her look like a clown.
Exactly. That's why this match should have main evented. And I feel like everybody was just like, "Oh, this is the perfect match. It main evented," and I was like, "No, it didn't." And here's the problem that I had with it. It wasn't about the match. This is what we've come away from WrestleMania now, right? We're in September. We've been 6 months away from
Mm-hmm.
WrestleMania or however long, and you know what people talk about when they talk about that WrestleMania? That the Bloodline closed back-to-back WrestleManias, the back-to-back nights. There's nothing about the story. Nobody talks about that match. And that's what I was arguing at that point. If you go back and you watch my TikToks, then I was like, years down the road, we're going to be doing what we're doing now, 6 months later, talking about Rhea versus Charlotte that should have main evented, and people aren't going to remember this match. You know what I do remember this match? I remember Jim Cornette bashing the Young Bucks and the Usos, and the Usos thinking, I'm going to use the main event of WrestleMania to be an asshole and to troll Jim Cornette and throw 37 super kicks. That's not main event worthy to me. If you can't rise above a troll to give us the best produced match you could possibly give us, that to me doesn't deserve a main event. No, these women should have got it. You could tell it pissed them off. You could tell Charlotte wasn't really there, but when she gets that brush burn on the mat, you can tell it's like watching two different matches. Something happens to the two of them, and it to me it was the match of the weekend. There's not a single match that stuck out more than that. Charlotte has done that to me twice. Her match with Asuka and this one. She's stolen
That
two
match.
WrestleManias.
So okay, so I have to cheat because we were crazy because Saturday night was busy because we were busy both morning and in the evening because we went to WrestleMania night one. But I also scored us tickets to Stand and Deliver, and at WrestleMania night one, Rhea versus Charlotte was my match there. Though I have to say that Fatal Five Way for the North American Championship. Listen, I know people are not big on Spot Fest, but I'm a big Spot Fest. JD, Ilya, Wes, Axiom, like all of them. I thought people died during that match. Uh,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
definitely
I
look.
mean, you just named the exceptional talents.
Yeah,
That's a
that
good
Fatal
match.
Five
Yeah.
Way was great, but Rhea versus Charlotte of both nights of WrestleMania, definitely probably my favorite match of the whole entire 2 nights of WrestleMania. But again, and Charlotte, I like that Charlotte gave the rub to Shotzi in this SmackDown episode, and
Yeah.
for overall for a SmackDown that we got that was missing a lot of the major stars because they were in India or they were other places. I liked what we got because Shotzi is now be hopefully if it lines up correctly and they continue to push her that Shotzi will be a
Yeah.
star. I love what LA Knight versus Grayson Waller looks to be heating up, which I'm excited for. AJ showing shades of the face that runs the place. Judgment Day shenanigans and like what's happening. Like, why would you help the bloodline? Like, there's so many interesting things that
Love
came.
it. Love
And
it.
on paper, the SmackDown was going to be, it looks okay. But now am more intrigued to see what we get the next couple of weeks leading into Fastlane, leading into Survivor Series, and then eventually the road to Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a great indicator for where to go. It's clearly setting up AJ versus Roman or the OC versus the Bloodline, and it's clearly setting up whatever the Wall Street Profits or whatever they're going to be with Bobby Lashley, but 100% I want more of Street Profits and Bobby versus the Judgment Day. I'm excited. I can't wait for the addition of Bianca Belair. Or there's a rumor out there that there's a free agent who can join this faction, which I think would rock. I listen. I'm a fan of hers. I know a lot of people aren't. I don't care what you think. Argue with your abuela. If Jade Cargill joins the WWE, and this is her introduction to come in with Bobby and the Street Profits, there's going to be a lot of questions as to who's better, Bianca versus Jade, because Jade is a natural talent. She just didn't have the right people to work with in the other company. But in WWE, oh, she's rising to the top. She is absolutely rising to the top. She's already part of one of my favorite promos ever. Like, who in the f told you this was open mic night?
I don't care what nobody
Like,
says. I love I love that part. I was like, "Who told you it was open mic
yeah,
night?" I listen, I don't care. I love that
yeah.
part.
I'm a big Brandy fan. I love her. I thought we were gonna get her. I wanted her versus Rhea. I was like, sure, she'll do the job to Rhea, but who cares? I want her to cut a nasty ass promo, man. That's my favorite promo by any female since AJ Lee cut that pipe bomb promo on talent can't be sexually transmitted on the Bellas. I
I
love
was
that
like,
promo.
"What is happening?" Oh my goodness.
Listen, Puerto Rican we're crazy, man.
Yes,
That's
I
just how it is.
totally agree. But
Like,
Luis, my friend,
so
this I love when you get to pop in. This was a really fun review. Really was.
yeah, absolutely. This was our first one-on-one, so
Oh,
I'm excited.
definitely for sure. And of course, you are now a part of the fold, so you are definitely one of us. But that is going to bring us to the end of this Friday Night Faction review. I'm excited to see where Friday Night SmackDown goes, or SmackDown. Or I still call it Friday Night SmackDown, whatever. But I'm
Mhm.
excited to see where it goes. If you liked what we did here and want to check out other stuff, you can follow us, hit the bell notification, subscribe to the Biconics Wrestling YouTube channel to see other reviews of TV reviews and pay per views. You can check us out on the social medias at BC WrestlePod, where I tag these guys way too often, especially because they are a part of so much going on here. And then make sure to also check us out at the Biconics Wrestling Podcast, where if you liked what we did the last 15 minutes of this review, we pretty much do that for 3 whole hours. It's so great.
Let's do it.
But until the next review, thanks for tuning in and see y'all later.